morning, everyone. Our topic for today is fractions and decimals. Here are the learning objectives for today's lesson. You're going to relate fractions and decimals with denominators of 10 and 100 and solve more problems related to fractions and decimals. How can you write a fraction as decimal? Let's analyze this problem. On Kelsey Street, 6 out of 10 houses have swing sets in their backyards. So you're going to write 610 as a decimal. So 6 out of 10 houses have swing sets. So fractions and decimals can be used to show relationships between numbers. So what are you going to do is to write 610 as decimal, and you need to use grid to help. So this 610, as you can see, this is the grid, 6 shaded parts out of 10 parts. So there are 10 houses, so each house is 1/10 or 1/10. So 1/10 is equivalent to 0.1. Okay, or we can read this as 1/10 because 1 should be on the 10th place. So 6/10 is 6/10 or 0.6. So the decimal point of 6/10 is 0.6. In the Kelsey Street neighborhood, 75 out of 100 houses are two-story homes. So we're going to write 75 hundredths as a decimal. So if I'm going to use a grid to help, this is equivalent to 75 shaded parts out of 100. So 100ths, if I'm going to change that into decimal, the answer is 0.01. So the 75 hundredths must be changed into 0.75. Now, what is the easiest way to change fraction to decimal and decimal to fraction? So let's analyze this one. How can you use grid to represent $4 and 71 hundredths? So we're going to read this as $4 and 71 hundredths. So this is more than 4. So if I'm going to use a model, I need 5 100 grid lines. Okay? And each one represents whole part. So this is one whole part, second whole part, third whole part, and fourth whole part. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this 4 whole part represents $4. And 71 hundredths, if I'm going to write that into fraction, this part, that is equivalent to 71 out of 100. So if I'm going to use this grid, I need to shade 71 out of 100. So this is how are you going to use grid to represent this given number. So 4.71 or 4 and 71 hundredths. Now, write a decimal and a fraction for the part of the grid that is shaded. As you can see here, there are 5 shaded part rather. There are 5 shaded part out of 10. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shaded part out of 10. So how are you going to write that into a fraction? So the fraction of that is 5 out of 10. Okay? Now, how to change this fraction into decimal? So the easiest way is to look for the number of zeros. So the number of zeros is 1. The number of zeros is equivalent to the number of movements going to the left. So from here, going to the left one time because you have 1 0, so your decimal now is there. So what is the decimal of 5/10? That is equivalent to 0.5 because 5 is in the 10th place. So the final answer is 5/10 for the fraction and 0.5 or 5/10 as a decimal. So we have the fraction and we have the decimal. Okay, now what if the decimal is given? How are you going to change it into fraction? You just simply copy 5 and find the place value of 5. The place value of 5 is tenths. That's why it is equivalent to 5 tenths. Another example, how many shaded parts do we have? We have 4. So 4 out of hundreds, right? So the fraction now is 4 hundredths. And how are you going to change this into decimal? The easiest way, as I told you, you need to look for the number of zeros. So you have 2 zeros here. It means from the last digit, you need to move 2 places going to the left. 1, 2. So the decimal is there. So there is a missing number, which is 0. That's why the decimal is 0.04 or 4 hundredths. So the final answer now is 4 hundredths as a fraction and 0.04 as a decimal. Another example here, I have this one. So as you can see, 1 whole part, this is equivalent to 100. So the easiest way, if it is shaded all, it means that it's 1 whole part. Okay, and how many shaded here? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 54. So 1 whole part, then this is 54 out of 100. Okay, so the fraction now here is 1 and 54 hundredths. Okay, because 1 whole part and 54 out of 100. Now, how are you going to change it into decimal? So you're going to count the number of zeros from the denominator. You have 2. So it means you're going to move 2 places going to the left. 1, 2. So the decimal is there. So the decimal answer is 1.54 because 54 hundredths means 0.54 and you have the whole number 1, so the final answer is 1 and 54 hundredths. Okay, next. Here, so what is this all about? So remember that the silver one, this part or this figure, the silver is what we call the dime. And dime is equivalent to 1/10 each. So 1/10 and another 1/10. Okay? So this is 1/10 and another 1/10. So that is equivalent to 2 tenths. So we have 2 tenths per dime. How about this one, the bronze one? The bronze one, that is what we call penny. And penny is equivalent to 1 hundredths each. So the first one is 1 hundredths, 1 hundredths, and another 1 hundredths. So what is the total? If we're going to add, that is equivalent to 3 hundredths. So in order to get the answer, we just simply add 2 tenths and 3 hundredths. As you can see here, the denominators are not the same. 2 tenths and 3 hundredths. So in order to add that one, we need to find the least common denominator of 10 and 100. So the least common denominator of tenths and hundreds is equivalent to 100. So how 10 becomes 100? That is multiplied by 10. So 2 multiplied by 10, that is equivalent to 20. The same thing here, if 100 is the denominator, we just simply multiply. How 100 becomes 100, that is multiplied by 1. So 3 multiplied by 1, that is equivalent to 3. Then we're going to add both the numerator, 20 plus 3, that is equivalent to 23, and the denominator is 100. That's why the fraction of these figures is equivalent to 23 hundredths. So how are we going to change that into decimal? So we just simply count the number of zeros. We have 2, the 2 movements going to the left, 1, and another movement, we have 2, so the decimal is there. So the final answer for decimal is 0.23, or we can read this as 23 hundredths. So the final answer is 23 hundredths and 0.23. Now let's solve the problem solving. The arena of the Colosseum in Rome was about 1500ths of the entire Colosseum. So write this amount as a decimal. So from the fraction 1500ths, we're going to change this into decimal. How? Just count the number of zeros, then move to the left. The number of zeros is equivalent to the number of movements. So we have 2 zeros, so 2 movements going to the left, and the decimal is there. That's why the final answer is 0.15. So what fraction of the Colosseum was not the arena? So our basis is the whole arena. Okay, so that is equivalent to hundreds over hundreds, or 1. Then we're going to subtract the given number, which is 1500ths. 1500ths is the entire Colosseum. Okay, so 100 minus 15, that is equivalent to 85, and the denominator is hundreds. That's why the answer is 85 hundredths. Next, the diagram models the plants in a vegetable garden. Write a fraction and a decimal for each vegetable in the garden. As you can see here, the red one represents the radishes, the yellow one represents the corn, the orange one represents the carrots, and the green one represents the lettuce. So what is the fraction and a decimal for each vegetables in the garden? So the answer is here. We have the vegetables, we have the radishes, carrots, corn, and lettuce. So this is one whole part that is equivalent to 100 parts, right? So radishes is equivalent to 23 hundredths. Why? 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 23 out of 100. Now, how to change it into decimal? 2 zeros, move 2. 1 and 2, so the decimal is there. So it becomes 0.23. Carrots. Carrots is the orange one. So I have 10, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 32, 34, 35. So I have 35 hundredths. 2 zeros to change it into decimal. So the answer is 0.35. Corn. Corn, I have 10, 3, and 2. That is equivalent to 15. So 15 hundredths. So to change it into decimal, I have 2 zeros, 1 and 2. So that is equivalent to 0.15 or 15 hundredths. Next, 27 hundredths is lettuce. Why? We have 10, 20. Then I have 7 green here. That is equivalent to 27 hundredths. So to change it into decimal, 1 and 2. So I have 27 hundredths. So the final answer now, radishes 23 hundredths, then decimal is 0.23 or 23 hundredths also when you read that one. Carrots 35 hundredths, corn 15 hundredths, and lettuce 27 hundredths. So that's it. Thank you so much and have a nice day.